So one of the things that I've been struggling with the most as a collector is understanding why cards are priced the way they are. And I'm not trying to make this more complicated than it actually is, because what it comes down to is the card's rarity, the Pokemon's popularity, and its playability in the TCG. But over the last 5 to 7 years, it feels like a card's price is solely determined by its popularity in the community, i.e. the $1,400 special illustration rare Umbreon EX from Prismatic Evolutions. I mean, come on, the set was printed less than a year ago and you're telling me that this card is $1,400. Why? But anyway, I'm not making this video solely to focus on Umbreon. I want to show you guys a little experiment I was working on when I thought, what if we took the top 10 most expensive special illustration rares and take their prices and give them to the top 10 most playable special illustration rare cards in our current standard format. And of course, you guys are more than welcome to disagree with me, but I want you to stick around to see what we have in the number 1 spot because I think it'll shock you. Spoiler alert, there are absolutely 0 evolutions on this list. And before we get to talking about our top 10, I want to give a shout out to our 2 honorable mentions. Our first one is Ceruledge EX. To those of you that aren't super familiar with the TCG, Ceruledge EX has an attack called Abysmal Flames that costs 1 fire energy and it does 20 damage per energy in your discard. The entire gimmick of the deck is to just discard as many energy as you can, so that way closer to the end of the game, you're doing upwards of 300 damage against your opponent's Pokemon. It's a very easy deck to pilot, it's a very easy deck to teach, and it's a very fun deck to play. Plus, there's not many artworks out there that I would give a 10 out of 10, and this Ceruledge EX special illustration rare is one of those cards that I absolutely feel like is underrated and is undervalued tremendously compared to some of the other artworks that we have with higher price points. Now, our second honorable mention goes to one of the most famous Pokemon of all time, and that is the Pikachu EX special illustration rare from Surging Sparks. With one of the most disruptive abilities in the TCG and one of the craziest attacks, Topaz Bolt doing 300 damage, it is a powerhouse of a card. Now, sadly, this card has a hard time standing alone as its own deck. You're gonna see it have the most play with a deck like Miraidon or Terrabox, and that's mostly because of its weird energy costs, and it synchronizes very well with both of those decks. Coming in at the number 10 spot with a what-if price of $329, we have the Bubble Mew EX from Paldean Fates. Now, the Mew EX is very similar to the Pikachu. You don't play this card as a primary attacker, you don't really build a deck around it. It's a very supportive card because it does have free retreat, and it has a very good ability with Restart that allows you to draw up to 3 cards. Now, a really fun fact about this card has to do with the illustrator, and I really hope I don't butcher his name right now. Uzgman, if anybody knows how to say this right, please let me know, because wow. But according to online sources, and we all know just how much you can trust the internet, this was his very first card that he illustrated for the Pokemon TCG, and it's an absolute banger. Like, think about that for a second. You wake up on a random Tuesday morning with a call from Pokemon, and they're like, hey, we really love your illustrations. How would you feel about designing a special illustration rare, one of like 6, for this really popular upcoming set? Oh, and the Pokemon is Mew, by the way. Absolutely brilliant. He crushed it. I really do wish I could put him higher, but at the number 9 spot at $332, side note, the actual raw price for the Bubble Mew EX is $332, which is technically the number 9 most expensive special illustration rare from Scarlet and Violet. The Blood Moon Ursaluna EX. Now, as far as artworks go, I'm addicted to this artwork. And I think I said this already, the Ceruledge EX special illustration rare is my favorite special illustration rare from the Scarlet and Violet era so far. Blood Moon Ursaluna's in my top 6, maybe top 7. Seriously, show me a card that better embodies the Pokemon in the artwork. And as far as playability goes, yes, it deserves to be this high because it is a great closer in the TCG. Its ability allows you to use less energy per prize card that your opponent has taken. So if your opponent has taken 5 prize cards, you can essentially attack for 0 energy, doing 240 damage, KOing a lot of 2 prize Pokemon in the format. Another side note, if you're not familiar with the TCG, basically there's a rule box on EX Pokemon where when they get knocked out, you take 2 prize cards of your starting 6. And another really cool fun fact about Blood Moon Ursaluna has to do with its illustrator, and I've really got to learn how to pronounce these people's names. But Yano Kaiji has illustrated 7 total cards in the TCG, and 5 of them are special illustration rares, and they are all playable. Yes, I do understand that 4 of them are the Ogerpon squad, but let's be real, right? If you're gonna have somebody design one of them, they might as well do all 4. Next on our list at $340, we have the Latios EX. When they announced that we were getting Surging Sparks and we found out Latios' ability, you knew this was just going to become one of the most playable cards in the format. And its ability is pretty simple. It just gives all of your basic Pokemon in play free retreat, which is super critical in decks that play a lot of Pokemon with 2 to 3 and 4 energy retreat costs. And if you dreamed about owning this card one day, keep an eye out because it is currently on a downtrend in price, which is really good for me because I'm looking to get a few copies for myself. However, with the release of Heatwave Arena, we might see a rise in popularity of this card solely because of the illustrator, because that illustrator, I'm trying my best, I promise. Okacheki is illustrating the Misty's Psyduck, which of course, as far as illustration rares go, holy crap, that is probably going to go through the roof. But next up at $351, I have a card that saw a meteoric rise in popularity after we had somebody pilot it to a win over 5,000 players, and that is the Archaludon EX Special Illustration Rare. Now listen to me, as far as artworks go, and especially the artworks we've already talked about, I will have to say the Archaludon is probably my least favorite and probably will continue to be my least favorite because as a special illustration rare, it doesn't feel special. Which really sucks to say because it's another one of those decks that's really easy to teach, really fun to play, and it's actually pretty lethal right now. Especially when you combine it with that poison element, holy crap, you can donk your opponent going first. And please, nobody tell Shinya Mizuno what I said because I'm certain that he's going to have a lot more opportunities to maybe even give us another Archaludon special illustration rare, considering this is only his second special illustration rare that he has made for the Pokemon TCG. But seriously though, we need justice for Archaludon. Like, this can't be the best we can do. And just ahead of Archaludon with a what if price of $365, we have its worst matchup, and that is Goldengo EX. And no, I'm not talking the special illustration rare from Prismatic Evolutions. Yes, that is kind of a cool special illustration rare. I do like how the coins are flying out of the sky with its ability being coin bonus, but there's just something about that string cheese artwork that I don't find enticing. And I sure as hell don't think it's worth the $100 price tag that it's got. Which is why we're going to focus on the much cheaper and better version from Paradox Rift, with a much more enjoyable market price of $29. Which, sad to say right now, is still a little rich for my blood and my wallet. But again, for those of you that are involved in the TCG, you know just how lethal Goldengo EX is. It's a part of a certain sect of decks in the TCG that we call one-hit KO decks, or OKO decks. The reason being because its attack, Make It Rain, does 50 damage per energy that you discard from your hand. And I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I do have a bit of a soft spot for this card because it's currently my favorite deck to run. There are just not a lot of cards in our current format that are both a draw engine and extremely lethal. But breaking into our top 5 with a what if price of $387, we have the Raging Bolt EX. And I know a lot of you were expecting to see the Prismatic Evolutions artwork on the screen. But no, let's not all sit here and pretend like that Prismatic Evolutions artwork is better than the Temporal Forces version, because it's not, at least for me. I'm a huge fan of hyper-realistic artworks, and more importantly, artworks that I feel capture the essence of the Pokemon. At the end of the day, this is a Bronchiosaurus-looking Pokemon, an ancient Pokemon, mind you, that looks like it's walking through Jurassic World. Yeah. It works, it's awesome, it's better. And now there is another reason that I have to go with this artwork, and that has to do with the illustrator once again. To Mr. T0, I must give a shout out because he is the person that illustrated my favorite alternate art Pokemon card from the Sword and Shield era, and that is the alternate art Umbreon V, not the VMAX, but the V that is standing atop those steps in front of all those Pokemon in the most regal looking stance ever. And no, I'm not kidding. That is my favorite alternate art from the Sword and Shield era. It is gorgeous. It should be more expensive than the VMAX. Okay, maybe not more expensive, but the gap should be much closer than it is. But as far as Raging Bolt is concerned as a deck, it's extremely popular right now. For several reasons, but the main reason is because it's super powerful. Just like Goldengo, it's another one-hit KO deck. And there are several different ways to play it, and each way is just as lethal. And if I'm being honest, I probably should have ranked it higher, but I've already pressed record and recorded half of this video, and I don't feel like starting over. So, just ahead of it with a what-if price of $424, I have the Gardevoir EX Special Illustration Rare from Paldean Fates. If I have any Naruto fans out there, you guys might understand where I'm coming from, but one of the reasons why I do enjoy this artwork is because of a big throwback memory for me. But when I grew up watching Naruto, one of my favorite characters that I hold near and dear to my heart is Hinata. And do you guys remember in that one scene where she was dancing, or well, practicing by the lake, and Naruto saw her, and you know, you could kind of like feel the love and stuff? Yeah, this artwork reminds me of that entire scene. And no, I'm not a Gardevoir simp. I don't enjoy Gardevoir in any creepy way, but this artwork, absolutely incredible. 10 out of 10. And an even crazier part about this card is that the illustrator, Kuriyamori, this was his very first artwork that he illustrated in the Pokemon TCG. But anywho, prior to rotation, Gardevoir EX was one of the biggest threats in the format. And as we speak, it's still a pretty popular deck. And I know we're getting up there with the prices, but if I woke up tomorrow and somebody was like, holy crap, the Gardevoir EX is at $424, I wouldn't be surprised one bit. And the same thing can be said for the number 3 card on this list with a what if price of $471, and that is the Charizard EX Special Illustration Rare from Paldean Fates. I bet you losers thought I was gonna say 151, didn't you? I am tired of people telling me that 151 Charizard is the best version of Charizard. It's not. It's awful. I hate it. It's so stupid. What do you people find so great about that artwork anyway? Tell me down below. Why is it better than the Paldean Fates version? Seriously though, if y'all thought Charizard wasn't going to be in the top 3, you're crazy. It is hands down the best way to accelerate fire energy to any of your Pokemon, no matter what the deck is. And its attack does 180 initial damage, and for every prize card your opponent has taken, it does 30 more damage. Which means just as the game goes on, Charizard gets stronger. There are not many cards in our format that do that. And yet somehow it's still not as popular and not as played as our number 2 entry on this list with a what if price of $501, and that is the Dragapult EX. And did you guys realize we only have one special illustration rare for Dragapult? Like, how is that possible? This card has been a force to be reckoned with since it debuted in Twilight Masquerade, and for some reason Pokemon just neglected to give it a special illustration rare in that set. But now the same thing can be said for the new Mamoswine and Blaziken EX that just came out in Journey Together. But Dragapult was out here winning tournaments almost as soon as it debuted. Sorry, Mamoswine, I don't think that's going to be the case for you, buddy. Now, I really want to tell you guys that the illustrator had absolutely nothing to do with me putting it in second place, but I'd be lying. And it's solely because of their name. Why is that, you ask? Well, their name is Jerky. Finally, a name I can pronounce. All kidding aside though, Dragapult EX is a very powerful card with its second attack, Phantom Dive, doing 200 damage to your opponent's active Pokemon and allowing you to spread 60 damage counters to your opponent's bench. But at a what if price of $1,454, we have the Fezandipiti EX Special Illustration Rare. Right now, I want you to comment down below. Did you guess that was going to be in the number 1 spot? And don't tell me I'm crazy right now, because I promise you I'm not. Listen, go on to Limitless TCG right now and pull up every City League online tournament, no matter what it is, and I want you to go through every single deck and answer me one very important question. How many decks are not playing Fezandipiti EX? If Pokemon were to create a new rule for the TCG, and that rule was you have to play Fezandipiti EX, there's not a soul alive in their right mind that would complain. Even the standard double rare version of this card is worth $13. If you've never seen the TCG played, go watch videos about it. People go out of their way to knock this card out in order to defeat their opponent. But my one true desire is to receive a special illustration rare version of this card that is held to the same heights as the Umbreon EX, the Sylveon EX, whatever you want it to be. But ladies and gentlemen, with that last pick, that ends our list of what I would argue are the top 10 most playable cards in our current standard format, and how they would be appropriately priced based on their playability and their playability only. If you guys did enjoy the video, please consider leaving me a like, dropping a follow, and remember, ladies and gentlemen, have a very, very wonderful day. Peace.